بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لا سهلا إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا ربي زدني علما اللهم انفعني بما علمتني وعلمني ما ينفعني ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. We start with the name of Allah and we ask that He makes learning the Quran easy for us. We ask that He increases us in our knowledge and the knowledge He grants us, He makes it beneficial, useful knowledge for us. And we ask that He accepts the small efforts that we are making in His path. Ameen. Today I wanted to just start off with just a little short reminder for the brothers over here. It's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to read through this hadith. Okay, so Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Verily, the one who recites the Quran beautifully, smoothly, and precisely, he will be in the company of the noble and obedient angels. And as for the one who recites with difficulty, stammering or stumbling through its verses, then he will have twice that reward." I think it's very, very important for us to just think about this hadith for a moment. Powerful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he's told us that, you know, reciting the Quran has such a high reward, a huge reward, that you'll be in the company of the angels. You know, and I remember hearing from someone that, you know, the angels themselves, they are unable to recite the Quran. They don't have the ability to recite the Quran. Okay, the angels themselves, they don't have that ability. They praise Allah in other ways, they glorify Him in other ways, but they don't recite the Quran. So when a human being recites the Quran, the angels come around that person. They go around that person and they come very, very close to him, and they, you know, they listen to this, you know, person reciting the Quran. So the person who recites the Quran, they will have the angels around him. And our Prophet ﷺ has said that the person who has difficulty in reciting the Quran, the person who struggles to recite, the person who struggles, they will have twice that reward. Okay, so this is just something for us to think about. Okay, you know, you guys are definitely, you know, doing something that is quite difficult. You know, learning Tajweed is not an easy thing to do. You know, especially a lot of you guys have, you know, very, very busy lives. You know, you got families and you've got a lot of worldly duties to, you know, take care of. But the fact that you are making time for the Quran, you are making time for, you know, practicing, you are making time for learning, you are making time for, you know, doing these things. You are, you're making these efforts, you know, for the sake of Allah, is something to, you know, think about. And, you know, in hopefully Allah will accept these efforts, you know. But it's just something I wanted to remind you guys that it's a very, very good thing that, you know, you guys are doing. And the goal is to attain this reward from Allah, and we should always keep that in mind, that, you know, we're doing this all for the sake of Allah. And if you are struggling, then alhamdulillah, you should not see it as something negative. If you're struggling, if you're struggling to learn, and if you're struggling to practice, and if you're struggling to, you know, read letters, read the words, you know, the way you want to read them, if you're struggling to do it, then don't see it as a negative thing. See it as an opportunity that, you know what, I'm gonna put in twice the effort, and inshallah I will get twice the reward. And I want everyone to, you know, think about it like that, inshallah. So that's just something I wanted to mention at the start of this class. Now, last week we went over the three vowels. We went over the fatha, the kasra, and the dhamma. So the fatha will make an a sound, the kasra will make an e sound, and the dhamma will make an u sound. I listened to, I think, every single homework, and I responded to every single one except for one brother. I didn't get a chance. I listened to it, I just didn't get a chance to respond. I have listened to your homework, the brother who sent it to me. I just have not gotten a chance to respond. But everyone else who sent me homework over the weekend, I have responded to it, and I've given you my feedback. I've told you what letters you need to work on. I've told you what things to practice, you know, in terms of letters, which ones need a lot of work. You have to practice it every day. And if you made other small mistakes, I've also mentioned that to you. One thing I want to just mention to everyone is with the kasra and the dhamma, just again, be careful. with the kasra to say E and not E. And with the dhamma, just be careful to say U and not O. That's just one thing. And another thing is make sure that when you are reading all of it together, all the words together, to try and make it as fluid as possible. For example, this word here, ضعف. When you're reading it, it is quite a difficult word. You have two difficult letters. You have the dad that's heavy and difficult, and you have the ain, is a letter of the throat, and it is also quite difficult. But try not to say ضعف when you read it all together. Try to make it as fluid as possible, where your voice doesn't really stop, and you say it in one go, and you say ضعف. Now, the way the way you're going to do that is through practice of the letters. You have to get comfortable with reading these difficult letters by themselves. When you are confident with saying the ain in all its forms, meaning a, I, and u, then reading it in the middle of the word, it won't be too difficult. You'll be able to read it confidently and fluently, and it won't become an issue. So if you find yourself reading the words, but you find yourself like it's all broken up when you're reading it all together, then that means you still need to practice the letters that are broken up, because your mouth is not being able to, read it fluently. So that means you have to practice it so that you can read it fluently, inshallah. That's just something else I wanted to mention to everyone in the class. So the goal for today's lesson is we're going to go over the stationary letters. Now, last week we mentioned that the vowels, they are letters with movement. For example, any letter with a fatha will be read with an a sound. Any letter with a kasra will be read with an e sound, and any letter with a dhamma will be read with an u sound. The letters have movement. You read the sound of the letter, and then you make some kind of noise after it. You're moving it. So it's a vowel. Now, today's class, we will be going over the stationary letters. These are letters with no movement, okay? So the word that I'm going to be using is sakin. It says sukun here. So a letter with a sakin, you can also say sakin. A letter with a sakin is a letter that is stationary. It has no movement, okay? Now, what is the sakin? The sakin, it depends on what kind of script you're using. Um, but generally, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like a little backwards C. It might sometimes look like a little O. And I think some scripts, I think the Bengali script, it looks like this. It looks like a little, like a kind of like a triangle without the bottom line. So that's the sakin. But I think the script that we'll be using is going to look mostly like this, like a little backwards C. So any letter with a sakin is going to be read with no movement. What does that mean? It means that we are going to read the makhraj of that letter, but we won't put any movement at all. Okay. Now, this might sound a bit complicated, but when I read it, when we practice it, inshallah, hopefully it will make a lot more sense. Also, one thing to note is that a letter with a sakin will never come by itself. Okay. A letter with a sakin will always come with a letter before it. And we basically join the two letters together. So if we look at this, I'm not going to do the first one because it might be a bit more difficult to read. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the one with the ha, okay? Because this is going to be clear to see what's going on. So if we look at this ha, this one over here, okay? So we can see that the ha over here in this box, it has a sakin on top of it. It has that backwards C that I mentioned. That means that this ha has no movement. We are going to read the sound of the ha with no movement, meaning we're not going to say a, e, or u, or anything else after the sound of the ha. But if you look carefully, it has a letter before it. It has the ta before it. This letter, the ta, is before the letter ha. Now, what that means is this ta, we are going to join it with the sound of the ha. So I'm going to just say that again because I think my explanation already is probably confused a few of you guys. Okay, so if we look at this, the ta over here, the ta has a fatha on top of it. So the sound of the ta is going to make is just simply going to be ta. When we read the ta with the fatha, the sound it makes is ta. Okay. Now, if we look, the next letter is the ha with the sakin, and the ha with the sakin will have no movement. So what we do is we join the ta to the ha. We'll read the ta as normal, and then after we've made the sound of the ta, meaning the ta with the fatha, we're going to read the sound of the ha, but just the makhraj. We're not going to read anything else. So how does that sound? It's going to sound like this. We're going to read tah, tah. We're reading ta with the fatha, ta, and then we're going to say the sound of the ha with no movement. It's going to sound like this. It's going to sound tah, tah. Okay. Now, while I'll do this next example with the ya. So here, the letter before the sakin is the letter ya, and the ya has a fatha on it. So that means the ya is joined to the ha over here. So what we will do is we will read the sound of this ya with the fatha, meaning ya, but after it, we're going to join it with the ha, and it's going to sound like this. It's going to sound yah, yah, yah. Okay. So we're making the sound of the ha, meaning the makhraj, middle of the throat, but we won't put any movement. We're just simply making the sound. What I'll do is I'll do another letter before I go through all of them. One that will make a bit more sense and it's a bit easier to say. We'll do the sin. Sin is quite an easy letter. I don't think anyone has difficulty saying sin. So if we look at this sin over here, this sin in this box has a sakin on it. Okay. So that means we're going to read the sound of the sin with no movement. We're simply going to make that sound. But we need to look at the letter before, and the letter before is again, obviously in all of these, it's just going to be ta and ya. So here, this is the letter ta with the fatha. That means we will join this ta with the sin, and we will read the ta as normal, meaning with the fatha. But after it, we're going to join it with the sin, and it's going to sound like this. It's going to sound tas, tas, tas. I hope that makes sense. So we're reading the ta with the fatha, ta, and we're putting the sin sound after it, and it's going to sound tas, tas. Okay. If we just do one with the ya, so here it's the ya joined to the sin. This will be yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I just want to gauge how good or bad my explanation was. So if you understood what I said and you kind of get what a sakin is, a 1. If you'd like me to explain a little bit more, a 5. Or if you have a question, just ask a question. So if you do have a question, just ask me the question. So don't worry if you don't understand. It's completely fine. I'm going to explain it again, and we're going to go through all of these examples. And through the examples, inshallah, things will make a lot more sense. Okay. Okay. A few 5s. Okay. So I'll explain it again, inshallah. If anyone has any questions at all, just interrupt me at any time. It's completely fine. Okay, so I'll explain it one more time, inshallah. And then what I'll do is I'll go through the examples, and I want everyone to read through the examples. And then as we read through it, it will make a lot more sense. Okay, inshallah. So the sakin is this little backwards T. Yeah. And whenever this sakin is on top of a letter, we will read the letter with no movement. Okay, meaning, before we had fatha, kasra, dhamma. We're reading the sound of the letter a, I, U, ba, bi, bu, ta, ti, tu. After we've made the sound, there is movement. Okay, so for example, with the letter ba, we're reading ba, bi, bu. The sound of the letter is the bi. Yeah, and the sound of the vowel is the a or e or u. Yeah, so with the vowels, there's movement after it. We pronounce the makhraj, and then we read something after it. Yeah. Whereas in the case of the sakin, is the opposite. We're reading something else, so there'll be something else before it, okay? But then after it, we're gonna just read the makhraj. That's it. We're not gonna read anything else. There'll be a letter before, and then we'll read the sound of the letter, but there won't be anything after that letter. So that's just basically what we're doing. We're reading a letter before, that letter will be joined to the letter with the sakin, and then that's it. We're not going to put any sound after it. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'm going to go through these examples, and I want everyone to just read along. If you don't understand it, hopefully through just going through the examples, you will understand, inshallah. And I'll go through each one multiple times just so that we all get some practice, inshallah. So here we have the ta joined to the hamza. Now the hamza is the bottom of the throat. Okay, so the sound is going to be like this. It's going to be ta, ta. We're not reading ta, we're reading ta. We're joining it to the hamza. That sound from the bottom of the throat is ta, ta. It's quite a sharp sound. So you're not just saying ta. If you're just saying ta, you're not really joining it to hamza. You have to make that sharp sound from the bottom of the throat. Ta. Here is the ya joined to the hamza. It's ya, ya, ya. So just a comparison just between. So the ta by itself will be ta, ta, and ta joined to a hamza is ta, ta. Ya by itself is just ya. Ya with joined to the hamza is ya, ya, ya. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the ba for now. Today, inshallah, we will learn a new tajweed rule after we've gone through this example. So the ones to do with the rule, I'm just going to skip them and I'll come back to them at the end, inshallah. So we'll do the ta next. So ta joined to the ta. This ta here has the sakin, so we're going to join this ta to this ta. It's going to be tat, tat, tat. And when the ya is joined to the ta, it's yat, yat, yat. Okay? We're just pronouncing the sound of the ta with no movement after it. Okay? Here, the tha has the sakin. So we're joining this ta to this tha. So the tha sound from the tip of the teeth, from the tip of the teeth up to touching the tip of the tongue, touching the tip of the top two teeth. So we have, this is tath, tath, tath. And the ya joined to the tha is yath, yath, yath. Okay. Now, just a quick note. The letter before it can be anything. Okay, all of these examples are just ta and ya, but the letter before can be any letter at all. And also the vowel before it can be anything. It can be, fatha, kasra, dhamma. It can be anything at all. So the letter before and the vowel before does not matter. It can be any letter with any vowel. That's just something to keep a note of. When we look through the practice, you're going to see that it's just a mixture of letters joined together. But just for this practice page, it's just always ta and ya with the fatha. That's just to make it a bit more simple, inshallah. But make a note that the letter before can be any letter, and the vowel before it can also be any vowel. I'm going to skip the jim. I'm just going to skip the jim. I'll just rub all of this out. So far we've skipped the ba and we've skipped the jim. We'll come back to them, inshallah, after when we talk about this new rule of tajweed. So we've gone through the ha. So this is tah, tah, and this is yah, yah. Now here we come to our first heavy letter. The kha is a heavy letter, so we need to mark that. And when we join to a heavy letter, we need to keep that heavy letter heavy. But if the letter before it is light, in these cases, the ta and the ya are both light. The light letters will remain light. The heavy letter will be heavy. So this is going to be takh, takh, takh. and this is yakh, yakh, yakh. Okay, a common mistake is people will say toch, toch. People will say toch because the kha is heavy, they make the ta heavy. Or they might say yoch. The kha is heavy, they make the ya heavy. But this is incorrect. Whenever it's a heavy letter with a sakin, if the letter before is light, you have to keep it light. Okay. I am going to skip the dal for now, and inshallah I'll come back to it later. So how's everyone feeling at the moment? The brothers who wrote a 5, does it make a little bit more sense? A 1 if it makes sense, the brothers who wrote a 5, or still a 5 if you're still unsure about it.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yep.
You know, when you read for and then for, so you still have to move the tongue from the top of the teeth to the right tip of the teeth quickly.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So you'll be going from ta, the makhraj of ta, to the makhraj of tha. And in between you will make the sound of the fatha. So it will be ta.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So we'll carry on. So the dal, we are joining here the ta to the dal, and again dal is tip of the tongue touching the tip of the top 2 teeth. This is taz, taz, taz. And here we have the ya joined to the dal is yaz, yaz, yaz. Now we come to the ra. Ra is a unique letter. We learned last week that when the ra has a fatha or a dhamma, it's heavy, and when the ra has a kasra, it is light. Now, what do we do when the ra has a sakin? Well, when the ra has a sakin, what we do is we look at the letter before it. Okay, so the ra with a sakin, this rule is with the letter ra. We look at the letter before, and if the letter before has fatha or a dhamma, then the ra will be heavy. Okay, and if the letter before it has a kasra, then it will be light. So just how when the ra has a fatha or a dhamma, it's heavy, and when the ra has a kasra, it's light. Similarly, when the ra has a sakin, then if the letter before is fatha or dhamma, then the ra with the sakin is heavy. And if the letter before the ra has a kasra, then the ra will be light. Now again, this might be a bit confusing, but just keep in mind, fatha dhamma equals heavy, kasra equals light. And if you just keep that little thing in mind, then you won't really go wrong, inshallah. So here we see the ra is got a sakin. So the letter before it has a fatha. That means this ra will be heavy. So this is going to be tar, tar, tar. And here again the ra has a sakin and the letter before it has a fatha. So again this ra will be heavy. So this is going to be yar, yar, yar. And again, make sure you don't make the ta or the ya heavy. Don't say tor or yar. Making the ta and ya heavy is incorrect. Moving on, the letter za, we have taz, taz, taz. And the letter ya adjoined to the za is yaz, yaz, yaz. Now we've gone over scene already. This is tas, tas, and this one is yes, yes. Okay. So now we're coming up to the difficult letters. So the sheen with the sakin, ta joined to the sheen. This is tash, tash, tash. And here the ya is joined to the sheen with the sakin. This is yash, yash, yash. Notice how I've basically put this little line across like this. This is just to indicate this line going across from one letter to the next. is to indicate that these letters are being joined together. Okay, we're basically joining two letters together. So I want you guys to start doing this in your practice when you are making when you're going through your words for practice. Whenever you see the sakin now, make sure you do this little line just to indicate that the letter is being joined together. That way you won't get confused when you practice, inshallah. And when I go through the practice, how to practice it, I'll explain that a little bit more in more detail, inshallah. So the next letter, Sad. Sad is a heavy letter, so we have to keep that heavy. And by keeping it heavy, I mean we need to put a lot of pressure on the makhraj. Okay, so this is gonna be tas, tas, tas. Again, put your tongue on the bottom teeth. Put lots of pressure on the bottom teeth as you make the sound of the Sad. Tas, tas, tas. But keep the ta light. Don't say tos. Tos is incorrect because you turn the ta into a ta. So keep the ta light and say tas, tas. And the ya joined to the sad will be yas, 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 yas. Okay? It needs to be distinct from the scene. The scene is tas and yes. The sad is tas, yas. And because your tongue is touching the same place for both, the only way to make that distinction is to put more pressure on the sad. Okay? Now we come to the letter dad. And again, just a reminder of the makhraj is the side of the tongue touching the side of the back teeth. Okay? So here you want your tongue to touch that spot as you make the sound of the dad. So you want to go from saying ta, and then you put your tongue, the side of your tongue on the side of the back teeth. It's going to be like this. It's going to sound like this. Talbo, talbo, talbo. There's barely any sound when you make the dad with the sakin. Talbo, because your tongue is basically touching just one spot on the teeth. It doesn't really make much noise. Talbo. And the ya is going to be yalbo, yalbo, yalbo. Okay? The letter ta I am going to skip for now. I will come back to it later, inshallah. The letter dha. So I noticed quite a few brothers, you were saying the dha incorrectly in the homework. So just a reminder for the letter dha. You want the tip of the tongue to touch the tip of the top two teeth. So if this is your top two teeth and this is your bottom two teeth, side view of course, then you want your tongue to be there for the letter dha. Okay, you don't want it to be anywhere else. If you go too high, then you're going to make a different noise. And if you touch the bottom teeth, you're going to make za. You're going to put that Z sound, which we want to avoid. So make sure your tongue is touching the tip of the top two teeth. And this is telv. You have to give the za heavy as well. So this is telv, telv, telv. And the ya joined to the za is yalv, yalv, yalv. Okay. Again, you have to make this distinct from the dal. Dal is tad and yad, whereas dha is tav, yav. And the only way to make that difference is the dal is so light, very, very light letter, that the tongue just basically rolls off the teeth. Tad, yad, very, very soft, very light. And the dha is very strong, very heavy. You have to put lots of pressure on that point. Make sure you put pressure on the right point. If you're touching the wrong part, then you're going to make an incorrect sound. Tav, yav. So again, just make sure that it's distinct from the dal. Now we come to the ayn, middle of the throat. Ta', ta', ta'. Again, you have to get comfortable with making that sound from the throat. Ta'. And with the ya, it's ya', ya', ya'. And I know a lot of brothers definitely struggled with the Ain based on the homeworks. So the brothers who do struggle with the Ain, make sure you do spend time every single day practicing Ain. Inshallah, over time you'll see improvements yourself. But you have to make sure that it's a daily commitment. You practice every day, and inshallah, over time you will definitely see improvement. The Ghain is a heavy letter, so we need to keep it heavy. And again, just a reminder, Ghain is from the top of the throat, similar to Kha. So this is going to be Tagh, Tagh, Tagh. And the Ghain, Ya joined to the Ghain is Yagh, Yagh, Yagh. Okay. Moving on, the Ta joined to the Fa is Taf, Taf, Taf. And the Ya joined to the Fa is Yaf, Yaf, Yaf. I'm going to skip the Qaf for now. I will come back to you after, inshallah. So now just the last few letters. Ta joined to Kaf is Tak, Tak, Tak. And Ya joined to Kaf is Yak, Yak, Yak. We're just making the sound of the Kaf, and that's it. Ta joined to the Lam is Tal, Tal, Tal. And Ya joined to the Lam is Yal, Yal, Yal. Okay. Now we move on to Mim. Ta joined to Mim is Tam, Tam, Tam. And Ya joined to the Mim is Yam, Yam, Yam. Ta joined to the Nun is Tan, Tan, Tan. And the Ya joined to the Nun is Yan, Yan, Yan. Now we move on to the Ha, and again this Ha is very, very soft from the bottom of the throat. Make sure that you get that sound from the bottom of the throat, not the middle. The middle is Tah and Yah, so we want the sound to be from the bottom of the throat. This is Tah, Tah, Tah. It's like you're just exhaling, basically. And with the Ya, it's going to be Yah, Yah. Very, very soft sound. Yah. Ta joined to the Waw, Taw, Taw, Taw. And Ya joined to the Waw, Yaw, Yaw, Yaw. And last, Ta joined to the Ya is Tay, Tay, Tay. And Ya joined to the Ya is Yay, Yay, Yay. So just want to gauge how everyone's feeling. A 1 if you feel okay with everything that we've gone over so far. A 5 if you're not feeling so good. If you have any questions, ask a question. Alhamdulillah. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes left. So inshallah, over the next 10 minutes, I will explain the new rule of Tajweed. And then 10 minutes after that, maybe we can get some practice in, and then 5 minutes, just go through the homework. So this new rule of Tajweed is called qalqala. Okay, so I'll do it on Paint. So this new rule is called qalqala. So if you've got, a book, you might want to make notes with this. So qalqala is basically a bouncing sound or an echoing sound. Okay. Now, qalqala, we only do it on a certain few letters and only when they have sakin on it. Okay. So, what do I mean by this? Well, if you noticed, I missed out 5 letters. I missed out the ba, the jim, the dal, the ta, and the qaf. So qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. I missed out the qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. So those are the 5 letters of qalqala. Okay, so the 5 letters of qalqala are, so the 5 letters of qalqala are, and they are qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. So make sure you do it in this order. It'll make it easier to learn. So if you do it in this order, qaf, just zoom in a bit. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. Whenever we see them with a sakin, okay, it's not just any time, with a sakin, then what we are going to do is we are going to put an echoing sound at the end. Okay, what do I mean by echoing sound? Well, if we go back to our second example, we looked at tas, we looked at the scene. We said tas and yes. We made no sound after the scene. At the sakin, there will be no sound after the sakin. Well, in the case of these 5 letters, the qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal, we're going to put a slight sound after it. And it's not a heavy sound, it's not a strong sound, it's just a very, very small, slight echoing sound. Basically, what we're going to do is we are going to bounce the sound of the makhraj. Okay, so we'll do it with the ba. So we're going to put qalqala on this ba here. So instead of reading tab, we're going to read tab. I'll do it again. Instead of saying tab, we're going to read tab, tab, tab. So after the sound of the ba, there's a slight echo. Basically, our lips meet to make the sound of the ba, and then they just part again to make the echo. Tab, tab. Notice that it's not a fatha. We're not saying taba. We're not saying ta and then ba with a fatha. We're not saying taba. We're putting just a small echo sound. Tab, tab. If you look at it with the ya, this is going to be yab, yab, yab. Okay. So that's basically the sound of the qalqala. The 5 letters of qalqala, qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. Whenever you see them with a sakin, you're going to do that echoing sound. You're going to basically sound the makhraj and then just put a slight echo sound. So we'll go through these. So that's the ba. Just before we go through them, does it make a little bit of sense? If it makes sense, a 1. If it doesn't make sense, a 5. It's okay if it don't make sense. We'll go through the examples. Hopefully, just through going through the examples, it will make a lot more sense, inshallah. Okay, so we'll do the dal. So again, look carefully at how I'm marking it. I'm putting a little Q underneath the dal to indicate we are doing qalqala on the dal. Okay, this is something to also make note of. When you practice now, this is a new thing to note. Any qalqalas, you are going to mark it with a Q. So when we join the ta to the dal, instead of saying tad, we're gonna say tad, tad, tad. Okay, just a slight echo sound. And when we join the ya to the dal, it's yad, yad, yad. Okay, so again, it's not a fatha sound. It's just a slight echoing sound. So if you want a a very common example of the qalqala. Think of Surah Al-Ikhlas. Okay, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. At the end of the ayah, you have a qalqala. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And then at the end of the second ayah, Allahu Samad. And then at the end of the third ayah, and in the middle as well, Lam yalid wa lam yulad. And at the end of the last ayah, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. So you notice the qalqala at the end of every single ayah in that surah. Now qalqala is, you'll find it throughout the Quran, but that's just wanted to give an example of what it would sound like, inshallah, in the Quran. So that's how it would sound like. So if we go on to Jim, I missed out Jim. The Jim, you'll have the qalqala on the Jim. So this will be Taj, Taj, Taj. And the ya joined to the Jim will be Yaj, Yaj, Yaj. Be careful not to make a fatha sound. It's very, very easy when you first learn qalqala to make a fatha sound because you're overemphasizing it. Now, normally when I say when we practice, we want to overemphasize the sound, but in the case of qalqala, don't overemphasize it. Try to just keep it as natural as possible. With qalqala, the main thing is to not overthink it. Again, I'll just repeat that. With qalqala, the main thing is to not overthink the sound. Just try to read it as naturally as possible. Basically, the whole point of qalqala is that if you read the letter correctly with the correct makhraj, the qalqala should happen naturally. You shouldn't really need to put any extra sound into it. Meaning, if you're reading it from the correct makhraj with the right, using your tongue the right way, then, or your mouth the right way, then the sound should come as naturally as possible. So my advice with doing the qalqala and applying it is don't overthink it. As long as you can identify the rule, meaning you can identify wherever a qalqala will take place, then applying it shouldn't be too difficult as long as you just read as naturally as possible. So taj, yaj. And now we come to two difficult letters, the ta and the qaf. Now these ones are a little bit more tricky. Ta definitely quite tricky. You want to basically bounce your tongue from the makhraj. So again, this might be quite tricky. So again, the ta, the makhraj is the tip of the tongue touching between the gums and the teeth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the ya one first, because here this ta and ta together, it's a bit difficult. So I'm going to do the ya first. So we're joining the ya to the ta. We're going to bounce the sound of the ta. So it's going to be yatto, yatto, yatto. Again, yatto, yatto, yatto. So just to see if you're making the sound correctly, it should be natural. If you can say ta, 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 very, very strong, very clearly, then saying yatto shouldn't be too difficult because you're able to put that strength on the ta, and then when you bounce it, it makes that sound. I'll do the ta. Be careful to keep the ta light. This is going to be talto, talto, talto. Okay. Notice how I also forgot to do it, but this is both a heavy letter and we are doing the qalqala rule. So we're putting both the little circle underneath to indicate it's heavy and also the Q to indicate there's a qalqala. And the last letter we missed out was the letter qaf. So these are both, this letter is heavy and we are going to apply qalqala on the qaf. So again, you're just going to bounce the sound. So this is going to be taqo, taqo, taqo. And the ya joined to the qaf is yaqo, yaqo, yaqo. Okay, so that is the qalqala rule. It's just simply a bouncing sound, an echoing sound on these 5 letters: qaf, ta, ba, jim, and dal. And only when they have a sakin. When you see anything else on these 5 letters, it will not do anything at all. Qalqala is only with the sakin. Okay. So just keep that in mind as well. In the future, inshallah, when we go through more things, the qalqala will have no significance with any of these letters. It's only when they have a sakin on them. Okay. So if everyone is feeling okay at the moment, what we can do is we can do some practice for the next 10 minutes, inshallah. So if anyone would like to have a go practice, just raise your hand in the Zoom call, and inshallah I'll call upon you. Okay, so brother Shahriya, um, your hand went up first.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so what I want you to do is just talk me through the steps. I'm going to pick a word for you and then talk me through the steps. So I'm going to pick a difficult one. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, so do this one. This one is going to be quite tricky.
Okay,
So
cool.
talk me through the steps, yeah?
Yeah, sure. So first I'm going to do is make each sound of the letter.
Yep.
So it's fa.
So before that, we have to identify all the rules. So right now, we know two rules. We know the rule of the heavy letter,
Yeah.
and we've learned qalqalas too. So we have to go through and identify any rules we can see.
Okay. So there's no heavy letters.
There is one.
Is it the ra?
Fantastic. Very, very good. The ra is heavy, yes?
Oh, I forgot about that with the what's it called? Dhamma. It's a heavy letter. Okay, yeah. Okay.
And now we need to identify anything that's joined together. So any joinings, just identify it. Once you identified if it's a join, check if it will be qalqala or not qalqala.
Okay. So it's Jim and the oh yeah, it does qualify as qalqala. So
what are we joining together?
we're going to be joining the Hamza and the Jim.
Fantastic. And you mentioned it's qalqala.
Qalqala, yeah.
Okay, so now you're good to start.
Okay. So fa, ajja, ru. Oh, sorry, no, my bad. Fa, that's oh no. Fa, ajja, ru, fa, ajja, ru, hu, fa, ajja, ru, hu.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Fantastic. That was really, really good, brother. Really well read. And MashaAllah on identifying the rules correctly. Fantastic. Let's see who else. Brother Saeed, your hand went up second.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. So I'm gonna pick again a difficult one. Maybe we can do two. Okay, this is quite difficult, this one. So
Okay.
identify any rules for me.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the steps. So the steps, any heavy letters first, then anything joined, and if after joining, if there's a qalqala, just identify if it's a qalqala or not.
Okay, there's no heavy letters, but
Good.
there is a qalqala on the last letter.
On the dal. And which letters will be joined together?
The first two and the third and fourth.
Very, very good. Okay, so begin.
Okay. Had. Had.
Okay, mashallah. Well read. The ayn was not clear, so you want to try and get had, but I think obviously that's just something that you're practicing, right?
Yeah.
So inshallah, make sure that you are practicing the ayn, inshallah, yeah? Mashallah, well read. Let's see. Jazakallah khair, brother. Brother Jeffrey.
Yes, brother. Yeah.
I want you to do Let's see. Do this one here. This is going to be quite difficult, this one. So again, just identify any rules for me.
Yeah, heavy letters are ha and ku,
Very, very good.
and kalkala is no kalkala. Sorry, only for joining letter. Ta,
Anything
ha,
joined?
ta,
Ta and fa.
ta, ha. Taha luku, tahluku,
Okay.
tahluku.
So one thing, brother, when we're reading with the method, you want to make sure that after the lam, you're reading from the beginning before you try the qaf. So it's going to be takh, and then lu, and then takh lu, and then the qaf. So try again.
Tahluku.
So before you do the qaf, I want you to read takh lu all together. So it's going to be a takh first, then lu, then takh lu, and then qu. So try that.
Okay, no problem. Tahluku.
So brother,
Sorry, 1 minute.
no, don't worry, it's fine. It's, honestly, brother, it's fine. So repeat after me. So repeat after me. Takh lu, takh lu, qu, takhluqu. MashaAllah. We'll do another one, inshallah. We'll do this one here. So identify any rules for me.
Okay, and there's no kalkala.
No qalqala.
No kalkala. Okay, and there's no heavy letter.
No heavy letter.
Yeah, and the joining letter only. I mean sukun.
Yep.
I mean
So
nar and tum.
so that's a za. So it's naz.
Also naz
yep.
and tum. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So make sure you try and follow the method, inshallah, when you go through this. So begin.
Ka na kana ka na z kana kanaz tu kanas tu im kanastum.
Okay, so brother, the reason why I picked this word is just to identify something, inshallah, everyone will be able to learn. So when we use the sakin with the method, the reason why I marked it is when we're using the method, just immediately join it. So when we join it, we want to just immediately go from ka to naz. We don't want to just say ka, na, kana, and then join it afterwards. It's just, that's going to be extra process for no reason. Once we've identified a letter will be joined, we don't need to say, you know, the letter before. We can immediately just join it. So I hope that makes sense. So we can, so using the method is going to be, so repeat after me, ka, naz, kanaz, tum, kanaztum. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair, brother. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a few minutes left, inshallah, I can call. So brother Amman.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do this word, inshallah.
There's no heavy letters, and I don't think there's no qalqala.
So I can see one heavy letter.
Oh yeah, qaf. Yeah, qaf.
Qaf.
Yeah.
And which letters are joined?
The color, I don't think. Sorry, what did you say?
So which letters are joined together?
Is it the, what do you call it? Is it noon and qaf?
Yep.
And then ba and sin.
Yep.
That's joined.
And any qalqalas at all?
No, yeah, there's qaf.
Very, very good. So go through this with the method.
Na qa, ta, naqata, bi, naqata bi, and then
So again,
sorry.
So you don't want to say, so you don't want to do it like that. So you want to just, when we know it's joined, so again, I've marked it like this, just to indicate that it's joined. So just join it immediately as you go through the vowels. So because we mentioned that the sakin is a stationary letter, it's not a vowel. So we might as well just read only the vowel and join it straight away. So instead of saying bi, just say bis and then join it all together. So try again.
Okay. Naqata, naqata, bis, naqata bis.
MashaAllah, fantastic. And your qalqalan pronunciation of the qaf was very, very good. Jazakallah khair, brother.
Thank you, no problem.
Brother Kashif.
Yeah, I'm here.
Wa alaikum salam. Try this one here.
So is there is raw heavy letter.
Yep.
And thoughts are joining.
Any other heavy letters?
And saw heavy.
Fantastic.
So is it tos bi ru. Tos bi ru.
MashaAllah, that was really, really good. Only one thing is this ta, you made it heavy. So you kind of said tasbiru. You want to say ta, tasbiru. So try that. Keep the ta.
Tasbiru.
Yeah, it's going to take a bit of practice, inshallah. Obviously, the sad is heavy, but that's quite a common mistake, and I'm quite glad you made it. Inshallah, everyone can learn. That is very, very easy to make a light letter heavy when it's joined to a heavy letter. So just everyone keep that in mind, inshallah, when you do the practice. Jazakallah khair. Okay, so that's the end of this class. We've gone through the sakin. We've gone through the rule of qalqala. So what the homework is for today is just get as much practice as you can of these words, inshallah. There's quite a few. I think it goes up to, what page does it go to? Okay, so it goes up to page 32. So you have practice up to page 32. There's a lot to practice. If you want to practice just individual letters, you can practice through that through here. And if you want to just practice random words, you got a few more. You got some small ones here, and you got some bigger ones here. So yeah, practice as much as you can. Make sure you follow the method, meaning identify all the rules. Now we have two rules. We have the heavy letters and the qalqalas. So what I want you to do before you do any word, identify any heavy letters, then identify anything joined. The reason why I'm saying joined is so that way when you do the method, you're not gonna read something and then go back and say, oh no, it's joined. For example, if I look at this one here, you're not gonna go fa, la, fala, bi, fala, bi, and then realize it's actually joined to the tha and go, oh no, fala, bith. So identify anything joined. That way you'll save yourself time and you can just immediately go fa, la, fala, bith, fala, bith, ta, fala, bith, ta. So the steps are identify any heavy letters. So any heavy letters first, and you identify that with a. Identify anything joined, and you identify that just with a little line connecting the two letters joined. And then once you do that, check whatever is joined and check if it is a qalqala or not. So check if this is a qalqala or not. If it's a qalqala, put a Q underneath the letter and apply the qalqala rule. So that's the homework. And I want everyone to send me 5 voice notes, inshallah, of reading some words, inshallah. 5, 7, if you want to send me 7. Send me, Allah, and then I'll give you my feedback. Also, just a continuation, every single day you have to practice any difficult letters, any letters you have trouble with, make sure that you're practicing them as well. So that's the end of this class. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me, inshallah. And this recording will be available, maybe I'll send it once it's available, inshallah. I'll see everyone tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.